So in today's episode, we're going to be talking to Brian Meyers of JCR Off-Road in Michigan State, USA. Brian has done the most unbelievable job with implementing GembaTalk. It's literally the best I've seen in the years of doing GembaTalk, working with hundreds of customers. It's phenomenal. We really want to share Brian's process with you of how he implemented it so that you can do a better job within your organization. Let's get into it with Brian right now. So Brian, thanks very much for hopping on with me today. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your organization?
So I'm Brian. I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I have 4 manufacturing brands. First one is JCR Off-Road, which focuses on Jeep and Bronco off-road accessories. Then I have Victory 4x4. That one focuses on off-road accessories for the Lexus and the Toyota. Then we have Swatchproof UTV, which does the Polaris Ranger, same thing, roof rack, skid plates. And then we recently launched Fat American Manufacturing, which is focused on lean solutions. So adjustable tables, U-shaped cells, grid walls, organizational stuff. And we're pretty excited about that. And that's coming soon.
Wow. And how many people are in your team?
I have 47 employees. I started 21 years ago out of my mom's garage, and I grew it through hard work and a lot of effort. And now I'm just discovering lean this far in, and it's been life-changing for us.
Wow. So 47 people. And what kind of processes do you have in your factory?
We're mostly just a flat laser and brake company. So we'll start in the back with the laser and then brake pressing, then welding. We do everything in-house. So we do have some machining capabilities as well as powder coating. So customer places an order, we build it completely, powder coat it, and ship it directly to them.
So, wow. And how did you come across lean and GembaTalk? How did that happen?
I kind of had a backwards introduction to lean. I was invited by Mazak to go to Japan. So last May I went to Japan, and when I got to Japan, I saw everything and I was like, this is crazy. And then I came home and I was really frustrated and I was like, we suck. But I had no idea how to do it and I didn't know what I was looking at. So then about a month later, Mazak took me to Germany, and then we went Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, and I started to see it again there. And I was like, wait a minute, what is going on? They're doing it here too, so I should be able to do it. And then I came home one night, I was on a walk, I put a podcast in, I found Lean Baked Simple, and the first one was a Toyota Guru Roast My Factory. And then all of a sudden everything was like click, 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 click. And I was like, it's lean. I saw lean. And then the next one after that on my walk was actually you were on it, and you were talking about GembaTalk. And so I was like, whoa, I've had people talk about SOPs before to me, and I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not sitting down on a freaking Microsoft and sitting there typing out on Word, the process. That's crazy. And then when I heard your podcast, and I was like, there's an app for this? This is great. So I had never heard of an SOP probably 5 months ago, and here I am with 825 SOPs, and we're cooking to 1,000 here really quick.
Wow. That's why I needed to do this podcast with you, because I've never seen the level of engagement that your team has and the accelerated progress in all the years of doing GembaTalk so far. And so I needed to reach out. And the reason I thought that this podcast would be super valuable for people to listen to was, how did you do that, Brian? What were the steps? Like, if we can start, how did you get your team lined up to engage with that SOP standardization process? How did you do that?
When it comes to introducing lean, I think the first step is standardizing, right? You sort, you sweep, you standardize. It's the 3 steps. And we already were sorting and we were already sweeping. So how do we standardize? So explaining to them how an SOP would work, and then using it in smaller context of, do you want to keep training this person, or do you want to make a document that shows them how to do it? Then you don't have to walk down there 4 times. So we started with like low-hanging fruit things, like how to turn on equipment, how to run equipment, how to make this box, how to do that. And then from there, we've just kind of scaled it up.
And in your business, what processes benefited the most from being standardized, that your people really went, oh my life, this is changing everything. I'm going to make an SOP for all of these different items and SKUs and so on. Was there any particular process that really stands out?
It was every single process. There's no process in the world that can't benefit from standard work and an SOP that can show you how to do it. And even if you don't want to get super involved and document all your processes, at least document the easy stuff, how to turn on stuff, how to run
Mhm.
stuff, yeah, how to operate things, how to load things. You can take care of those real easy things really fast. And then you don't have to train people because the SOP can show them how to do it.
Beautiful. And that is the real value that I see personally. The biggest piece of value in GembaTalks is not maybe the traditional definition of standard work. It's more of a guide or a crutch to get people to value fast. So I'm not normally at this machine. Dave's out today, and I can walk up with the SOP and get to value really quite quick.
Hmm. When I looked at the standard work app, I thought this is easy. Everyone has a phone in their pocket. Why not leverage that? They already have it out half the time, anyways. Let's make some value from this thing. And when we started to go, if you think of like how Toyota does standard work, they always say that the standard work should be facing away from the people doing the work, and the person could walk up, look at it, and see them doing the work. But you have to give them some leeway to
Yeah.
allow them to, like, you can't be like, take 3 steps to your left, then use your right hand to grab this tool. You can't go that far into it.
Not in an SME. It's not appropriate. It's like if you're a Toyota on a production line, and yeah, people say that there's different cars going down the line, but it's fundamentally the same task every day. Yeah, you can go to that level of
Hmm.
detail and you can have the auditors and so on and so forth, but that's just simply not practical for the vast majority of SMEs. So where we're at isn't that same place. And that's where GembaDoc simplicity comes in, making it easy to document that process really quick and it's useful. And that's what we're trying to do. So for you guys, like you had 47 people in your team. Does everybody have a GembaDocs license? How did you go about, deciding who needs to use GembaDocs like on their, let's say the creating and editing part of that process? What was your thought process? What was your thought process around that?
So I kind of broke the rules of what everyone was saying to do. People were like, you need to have a handful of people that are the editors, and they're the ones that help. They go out and they stand next to the person and they help them make the SOP. And I kind of went the opposite way, and I just said, here's a login, here's an example, try to make them like this. And then after that, we just kind of edit them and follow up on them. If there's if there's some edit that we need to make on text or font, or if we need to change a picture, we'll just make the changes. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love it because one of my favorite, like recent learnings that I've had myself is what works in one organization and that approach doesn't mean it's necessarily going to have to be your approach. So what feels right
Yeah,
within your organization and run that experiment.
I feel like with lean, if you talk about everything is respect for people, then why aren't you respecting the people that they can make the right decisions to create a document of the work they do? So if you're micromanaging them, you're not showing them respect.
Hmm.
You're also underutilizing their talent, and you're not giving any ability to coach them. Or if you open the door to allow them to create an SOP, it
Yeah,
opens this path where you can go out and have a conversation about how they're doing their work and maybe help them improve it.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Like from one of my favorite, you know how many phrases we have in lean is the further away from the Gamba the decisions are made, the worse the decisions will be. I heard that from Chuck Ceccarelli. A friend, Alex Ramirez, made a video and it really resonated with me. And I think it's really similar for standard processes. So the further away from the person who's doing that job, the person creating the SOP, chances are the worse it's going to be. You have to put the prime ownership at the person doing the job. Whatever way that looks for you, it'll be better if the person doing the job owns the process.
Another thing that I can talk to is we use an ERP system. So using GembaDocs to implement stuff into our ERP system, when we're trying to do lean, the office is like the hardest place to get any buy-in for lean because they can't physically see a bottleneck. It's in the world. They
100%.
just haven't,
I agree.
yeah, they haven't learned to see. But you can say, hey, let's document your processes, and then they start to see what the waste looks like. And the other thing is like with an
Hmm.
ERP system like we're using, documenting the way that you do stuff in the ERP is so important because it is a pain in the butt. They're not designed to be user friendly. So now we have all these documents that show us how to interface with our ERP instead of having one or two people that know how to do it.
Hmm. I totally get it. Even the process of documenting the process exposes the waste.
Hmm.
that it's so not talked about. You know, that
Yeah.
the SOP itself is the outcome that we're looking for. But what we're really looking
Hmm.
for is the waste reduction. So we can
Yeah.
reduce the waste when we create the standard, and then we're reducing the waste with all the training effort. Now that we have a reference, we can get people up to speed much faster, utilize our people much better, and lose that waste too. So no, I
Mm.
absolutely love it. I love the process of. I've so many different working titles for the new book I'm working on. One of them is "Let the Process Be the Teacher."
Yep.
So whenever we document that process, we're going to learn from the process what we need to know and where the waste is as we are letting the process teach us when we document that standard.
Hmm.
So no, I totally get that. And then within in terms of deploying your SOPs, like how do you implement them? When we call implementing them, how do you implement them and make sure they're not just wallpaper?
So as of right now, we're using a couple different options. One, we actually print a QR code and put it on the equipment. As Ryan always says, where the question is asked, the answer should be. So a lot of our equipment has QR tags right on it on how to do certain things. Then from there, I also have allowed my employees to kind of pick what they want. If I have some areas where they benefit better from printed and then paste it on the wall with Velcro or whatever, go ahead. And then from there, our next step for us is to actually put the SOPs into our ERP system. So when the job traveler comes,
Beautiful.
you can click right on the tablet and it'll launch the SOP. And the other thing that's super cool about the system we're going to be using is we can make it like they have to scroll through the SOP before they can start the work. So they're forced to
Wow.
go through the SOP.
uh, for me, that's the ultimate answer where the question is. If the answer is on the job,
Hmm.
i.e., if we've got a works order going to the shop floor on paper, there's a QR code on it, or if that works order trigger is a computer signal that it's sitting in that card, then that's the ultimate. So the
If you
you need everything you need to know about how to do that job is there with the instruction that you need to do part number X right now.
if you remove some of the crutches that people use, so if you have certain processes you want them to follow the SOP, then you make the SOP the only spot that has that information. So if you
Yeah,
have,
exactly.
tooling on a wall, take the labeling off it, take the name off
Mm.
of it, and then put it in the SOP. So if they need to know what it is, they have to go into the SOP to find it. Otherwise, yeah, it just becomes a document that we made, and that's pretty
Mm.
cool, but it doesn't do any good.
You you guys have done a stunning job with that. Like I'm a little bit familiar with your kind of process from an earlier organization I was in. So we were doing a lot of welding, and I can see that a lot of your welding fixtures have a QR code on them
Hmm.
of how
Hmm.
you weld that specific part. And I get how critical that is. It's like what order I start the weld. If I get 6 welds on that part and everybody does it different, you're going to have so much variation in the dimensions of that part because that's the way welding works. So if
Hmm.
we
Yeah.
clamp like this and weld in that order and we standardize that, we're going to reduce the variation so much and also bring up to speed quicker when we've a new guy in how quickly he can get up to value again. It's so obvious to me.
I think once they understand they work and they do it every day, you don't expect them to have to open it every single time and go through every step by step. But if the
Sure.
change happens, right? If a change happens, we need to be aware of it and communicate it as well. And that thing is that they always say like you can't create improvements if you don't have a standard because you're just going to be creating variances on top of
Yeah,
variances on top of variances.
totally. So now it's like I'm going to come and visit you. We only reached after we arranged to have this virtual podcast. We're going to come and really deep dive and help. My mission in coming to Michigan is to get real useful information to help our customers and our not our customers, people who just want to get better at lean and have a insight into your journey. It's only been 5 months, and to really help other people get the kind of engagement you've got into this process. So you've done what I consider an absolutely exceptional job, Brian, and I really congratulate you and your team. And I've interacted with at least half a dozen of your team directly myself, which is also highly unusual. Like if somebody reads the book that I wrote, Improvement Starts with I, very often the business owner reaches out or the leader within the organization reaches out. But in your organization, I've had at least half a dozen people individually reach out to me, and I'm there for them as a mentor, and I'm really happy about that. So you've done an exceptional job, but what would you do differently in the 5 months you've been doing this? Like, can you give me like at least your top worst, stupidest thing that you've done that you wouldn't do, that you would choose to do differently next time?
I think when we jump into something, we jump like head first. The whole group does. And what we did was we jumped head first into SOPs. And in my welding department, it actually killed our production level. So our production went whoop, down the drain because
Ooh,
everybody was working on these SOPs. And although the SOP is important, production is important. So we had to try to
yeah.
find a balance. But as we are new in our lean journey, our numbers are the classic accounting numbers. You don't see your results until, how did we do? And it's, 6 weeks later. So then you're
Yeah.
like, oh, crap. So that was one issue
Mm-hmm.
we had. The other thing that I'll throw out there as a recommendation is just start. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Everyone gets in this thing where they're like, I don't want to document this because it's weird or dumb and I want to improve it. The greatest example I have is on our LizMac. The SOP for checking the water level is to stick your finger in a hole and touch water. If your finger is wet, it's good. If not, fill more water. And they were like, are we really making an SOP for this? And I was like, well, that's how we do it. Like, well, I'd like to make an improvement. Make an improvement later. Just get it documented.
Awesome. That is so cool. You see, for the first problem, do you have an allocated time now for improvements and SOPs or whatever? How do you manage it now? You know what, you know, you went overboard at the beginning, but do you have any sort of, and there is no right answer. What do you do with that now?
We've been kind of throttling up and down based on departments. So right now we're really heavily focused on our packaging. So we have a
Mm-hmm.
handful of us that are actually actively, aggressively working on packaging. So what I've done is I've used some of my surplus employees to kind of move out and help work on that. And, so if we can remove any waste that they have, motion or transportation, we'll start to bring that stuff in, allowing us to use that
Mm-hmm.
extra time to create the SOPs and to create the standard work. Now, as we
Mm-hmm.
roll out new products, we have engineers working alongside the welders the first time they make it to document it, which is probably the best way to do it. But when you're trying to catch up and you have thousands of products, you just gotta, as the product comes, you need to make the SOP.
Yeah, I really get that. Like I've seen you guys have an ambition to have an SOP for every single product packaging, haven't you?
Mhm.
If I
Yeah.
picked that up correctly.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So the way that our shipping works right now is our ERP system. When you actually pack the item into the shipment, is when it shows you the kit components. So you don't even know the kit components until you have it in that pack. So if there's no
Mm-hmm.
demand, you just have products sitting there. Sure, you can go in and look at the engineering and the ERP to look it up and figure it out. So what we're doing is we have no flow. So everything just comes into the shipping department on carts and sits. And then if stuff is
Uh-huh.
stock, it just collects dust. So instead, we're going to create a packaging line, and they're going to have to, launch a part in the ERP system to do the job. And right there will be the SOP for how to create that package. And the bulk pack it needs, the accessories it needs, the box size it needs. All of that will be right there in standard work. So we could put anybody on a packaging line from anywhere in the world, and they can just follow it and package our parts.
That is awesome. So like you guys, like how many SKUs do you have in your business?
We have a lot of SKUs. I think we have somewhere around 2,000 SKUs total. So we've been weeding some
Whoa.
out as we've gone, but we have a lot
Mm.
and we got a lot of work ahead of us. That's why I feel like, many hands make light work, and that's what we're doing. We're all involved. If you had 10 people doing SOPs, then that you're not going to get that far. If you have 40 people doing SOPs, you're going to get really far, really fast. We yesterday alone we made somewhere around 35 SOPs.
Uh-huh. It's incredible. And the thing that I love most about your organization is the energy you have. And it's so obvious that you're adding real value in this process. And yeah, I think that's why I'm so excited to come over in a few weeks. And we'll be doing another podcast and lots of long form content around it. I'm so excited. Brian, have you got anything today that you'd like to tell the audience about this whole journey? Is there anything left? Maybe you've said everything. Is there anything that you don't want to leave on the field or off the field?
If you're on the fence about buying GembaDocs and getting into it, go. because it is the best lean tool that I have absolutely came across to this day.
Uh,
And I know that Tom is upgrading it and adding on to it. And then I'm over here challenging him to add features. So I think it's going to become a really robust system. And it's best to get on now on the ground floor and get started so you don't have regrets and then have to figure out how to get 3,000 SOPs made in the next, as soon as possible.
it's funny. I asked that exact same question to someone else today who is a GembaTalk customer. And the last thing, I really mean it, the last thing I want out of this podcast that it comes across as some sales thing for GembaTalk is absolutely not what I want to do. But I got exactly the same answer. It's like, I wish I'd started earlier because I didn't know how much waste I had until I started this journey. And now I realize, and it's the benefits here, but you don't know till you've done it. So that's a great answer. Brian, look,
and
it's been, sorry, go ahead.
The other thing on top of that is if you want buy-in from your culture, you got to give them tools to implement. And we can't all be engineers and we can't all do process improvement and we can't all make these huge changes, but they can make changes right away using GembaDocs every single day. And that allows them to have some ownership and buy-in. So it really helps the culture get going because you're giving them a tool to create.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's like, it's a ownership dream. So we're going to build our own processes. Each individual, if I only do this, I'm building my process that other people can do it and I'm improving it myself. I'm going to leave this job better than I found it. Like, I had another discussion again. I talk a lot, but I had another discussion with a client today where they were telling me that on their offboarding procedure, they had a key person leave and they wanted to leave the job better than they found it. So they documented their SOPs for how to do their job before they left so that they couldn't replace them in the time that was available so that they could fulfill the role that was being done by them. And like, what an attitude. And having a tool, apparently that task was 55 SOPs. So imagine trying to do that with any other tool. And that, again, that's not a sales thing. That's just a fact. 55 SOPs of mixture of physical and virtual processes. There's nothing else. There's no other tool you could use to do that. So Brian, this has been so much fun. I am so excited about coming over to Michigan. I haven't been there for years. And stay tuned for for the next installment of the Brian Meyers GembaTalks journey. I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Maybe when you get here, we're going to celebrate 1,000 SOPs. We got a goal. So I'll get Mylar balloons and everything.
I'll have to bring over a trophy. Cheers. I will. I'll have to get a trophy for that. Brian, it's been amazing. Take care, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
Cheers.